Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Pink Property Podcast. I'm Leo Bryan, here and joined this week by James Rawlinson. James is our branch manager of the letting side of the business here at David Lee. He's been with us over, coming up 6 years now.
6 years, September,
And we're currently managing and dealing with management of around 250 properties in the rental side of the business.
Yeah.
So got a great depth of experience. And we wanted today's edition to be a bit more landlord and tenant focused in the content that we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about the renewal process. So as a tenancy comes to an end, or is due to come to an end, a big long email comes out to the landlord offering multiple solutions as to what happens next. So we wanted to sort of break down that email, break down the common questions that come up, and provide you with some sort of insight into what happens next and what's the best thing to do. So James, first and the most important one is when does the renewal process actually start?
Good question, or trickiest time as well. It's at the moment, because of COVID, it's now 4 months prior to the tenancy ending.
Okay, so before we go on from that, where was it before?
Previously, it's normally 2 months before.
Okay.
So you'd contact your tenant. If it's a 12-month tenancy, you contact them on month 10 to say, what's your plan, what you're doing, and same for the owner as well. We do that for the same for the landlord.
And then it's now 4. It was 2. Was there a time in the middle when it was 6?
6 months.
So this has
months
moved
for
around
any
a bit.
tenancy as well. So 6 months for regardless of what reason you need your property back. 6 months, and still the same for 4 months. It's shorter for antisocial behaviour and a few other things. You can quickly progress it and get down to 4 weeks, 6 weeks. But most things you want your property back for at the moment, 4 months notice.
So 4 months is the number to remember. So it starts 4 months prior. So at that point, what are your options? What are the options that are presented to the landlord first in that moment?
So there's 3 really. You can look to extend with your current tenant. Obviously double check that you want to do that first. Your rent's been paid. Market price, the rent you're getting's still good and reasonable. So consider that as an option. So another fixed term, whether that's 6, 12 months, 18, 2 years, but confirm with your tenant what they want to do as well. You can go periodic, which is just a month by month rolling. So
periodic's a bit of an agency term, really, isn't it? So what does that actually mean to the landlord? Month by month, okay.
Flexible contract, good for landlords that aren't sure what their plan's going to be. Maybe they want to move back into it, selling their current property, or want to sell that one in 8 months' time. It's a good choice for that. And as well for a tenant, if you're unsure what your plan is, try and enforce a periodic tenancy so you're not stuck somewhere for another 12 months or 24 months. So,
because once that contract is signed, both parties are bound by its terms. So I think it's important for both landlord and tenant to understand that.
Notice periods for that, a landlord needs to give 2 months to a tenant from any date. Tenant's notice is 4 weeks from their next rent date.
So that's on a periodic when it goes to that rolling
short
contract.
Notice, but it will work for some landlords and tenants.
Fine. So we've got periodic, we've got renewal.
Or end tenancy.
End the tenancy is that third option,
If you're not happy, for whatever reason, give them 4 months notice to leave. If you're not a bit behind, you didn't know it's 4 months notice, unfortunately, you still have to give 4 months. They can leave at the end of the tenancy. But they can choose to say, well, you've given me 4 months, I'm staying for 4 months, and it can overlap the end of the tenancy.
And then the reverse notice that comes the other way from the tenant side, how long does that have to be?
So at the moment, it's, depending on what tenancy it is, for a fixed term, they still have to give you, we'd prefer as long as possible, but 2 months notice before the end would be beneficial. And if they give you that, then you can void your 4 month period.
And if it's rolling and it's gone on to that periodic tenancy?
So rolling was the 4 weeks.
They have to give 4 weeks
from their next rent date.
Okay, Cool.
So most of them will give 6 weeks notice, but 4 weeks from the next one.
If a landlord had decided to make that decision and they wanted to give notice to their tenant, they've decided they either need the property back or they're not happy with the way the tenancy is being conducted, how do we go about that? How do we give notice?
A landlord, well, if we manage it for them, we would give them a Section 21, which is, at the moment will be a 4 months notice in the post, hand delivered, recorded delivery as well. Okay. Just to be safe, to make sure.
Triple check.
If they say, well, I didn't get that, you can say, well, it has been sent to you. And then there will be a notice period to say, we've given it to you on this date, it's for 4 months. Yep. You need to leave by the end of this period, which is this month. And a tenant needs to formally give their notice to us or the landlord. Find out in your tenancy agreement what notice you have to give first, but then just an email to say I'm giving my notice today to vacate at the end, which is such and such.
So there's nothing really that official that needs to come from a tenant
Not
side. It's
really
simply
from
just
a tenant,
in writing.
in writing,
from a landlord,
really. From a landlord, a bit more official.
It's quite unofficial. You've got to serve the necessary section notice, which we will do on their behalf. If they wanted to stay and we were looking at the rent, would you advise always looking at a rent review, and how does that process work?
Not always. Unless it's been a while and the rent is very low, then ask an agent or look around at prices. And if you are behind by 100 plus a month, definitely try and increase it. Legally, you can only increase every 12 months as well. Okay. If you're not far off and it's £25 a month, but they're good tenants, I'd probably suggest keeping them. If they're happy paying you rent, looking after your property, keep hold of them.
Is it worth losing a tenant?
Don't annoy them, because they'll shop around and find something else. And then all the costs that are involved in moving in, moving out. So then you've got an empty property.
It's not always worth it for
possibly pay an agent or market it yourself. Time spent on that, and then money, and
250 quid over the year. It's sort of
your loss is greater than £25 a month for another year.
I totally agree with that. I think it's good to keep good people in, paying consistent. Absolutely. So, last question actually, which is just a bit more of a clarity piece really. What happens if you've got a joint tenancy? These decisions that are made, they have to be collective.
Everyone has to be in agreement. So 3 sharers in a property, if they're all, we've had one recently where it's a couple and a friend. Right. And one wants to leave, fine, they can leave and the other 2 can keep it on, that's fine. But if all of them want to leave, they all need to be in agreement. They all need to be in agreement with the owner that they're all leaving on such and such date, and all have to hand in their notice. And if one of those, so for that scenario there, do we then have to re-reference the 2 that are remaining behind to ensure that they can afford the whole rent, or did we already have that in place? On landlords, landlords might be comfortable with knowing that they're still in the same jobs, they can afford it from the previous reference. But if there's any changes for jobs and bits, then that we can request another re-reference for the 2 that are staying, just or the 1 that's staying, just to be safe. And then the tenancy is re-signed, that person's taken off of it, and the other person struck off, or we'll do a deed of surrender to they'll surrender from the tenancy. Brilliant. The other 2 will stay on. Good. James, thank you very much for that. I know there are some, so it can be quite an anxious time of landlords not quite knowing what to do, how to go about it. But the team here have got it well structured. It's put in place as early as required, and those decisions are made correctly, and the correct practice and processes are taken after that. So I hope it helps shed a little bit of light on that. If you've got any other questions, or you're going through or approaching a renewal and would like some advice, please reach out to myself, James, and the team. We'd love to be able to help you. Thanks as ever for tuning in this week, and have a great Sunday. Thanks a lot.